Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Protomartyr record, Formal Growth in the Desert. The way that Protomartyr helps represent post-punk in the semi-mainstream today is actually quite interesting, because while it seems like the band are not going to be all-timers within their specific niche per se, albums like 2017's Relatives in Descent are classics in the making all the same. It's kind of a weird paradox in a way, like, everybody that cares about post-punk cares about Protomartyr, but also nobody that cares about post-punk cares about Protomartyr until they release a new album before they immediately forget about them until the next album cycle. It's kind of a shame because they are a genuinely very good band and they don't get enough love despite being one of the more popular post-punk bands out there. Formal Growth in the Desert, the latest studio album from the Detroit-born post-punk band, is an example of some of their best and some of their worst qualities. The album starts off beautifully with the major album highlight Make Way, which is a sort of reference to this art school gothic rock kind of sound that'll probably be very familiar to people who are well versed in the Sisters of Mercy or the Damned post Machine Gun Etiquette, of course. Basically, any sort of somewhat synth based but still heavily punk based gothic rock, it's pretty adjacent to that, but nonetheless, it is executed perfectly. Joe Casey's work as frontman is especially a definitive quality here, as his low but yet still emotional voice fits in perfectly for the sort of atmosphere that Formal Growth in the Desert is providing here. Again, that sort of goth-esque sort of sound. He is perfect for it from a vocal standpoint. The real issue only arises when the record continues past the first few songs. The run of the first 4 tracks or so, give or take, is phenomenal. It's when the album starts to reach its midpoint and then the back half that you realize there are no real change-ups here. I mean, it just begins to get a bit monotonous after a while. I mean, it would be ridiculous for Protomartyr to kick into like a ska punk song right after some more brooding tracks like Fulfillment Center, but at the same time, the whole thing is just a bit too uniform for its own good. There are times genuinely in the second half of the record where it feels like the same song repeated over and over, or at least similar passages repeated in different songs. Unfortunately, it results in a lot of the best qualities of the record starting to fall apart after a while. I mean, the vocal work isn't as impressive, the instrumentation feels repetitive, and sadly, the gothic kind of sounds here feel a bit gimmicky at times, like they structured an album around gothic sounds rather than just structuring an album that happened to be gothic. There's just such little variety being brought to the table here that it feels as if Protomartyr sort of trip over their own 2 feet several times, especially in the latter half of the record, as it just kind of feels repetitive after a while, and it's a shame. Formal Growth in the Desert has some great ideas, and it creates a very respectable soundscape, and you know what? The first few tracks on here are absolutely phenomenal. I will not say that they are not, because they really are. The main issue here isn't necessarily what Protomartyr are trying to do, but rather how they execute it, as they take up a specific sound and plant root in it that are so tight that they just don't evolve at all. I mean, this is so grounded in one specific style that there's no real sense of variety or evolution here over the course of the record. And again, it didn't need to be some sort of groundbreaking concept album, but I would have liked to see maybe a slightly lighter gothic rock song in the midst of all of the brooding gothic rock songs. It's certainly not a bad album by any means. In fact, it's pretty decent, but at the same time, it probably should have just been an EP, because if this were just the first 3 or 4 songs, I would have probably absolutely adored it. It's just the fact that it feels like the same 3 or 4 songs repeated that kind of drags it down. I'm going to give this record 3 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.